How's it going, everybody? Welcome to King's Tales, the podcast where we help you transform your trauma into triumph. I am the host and founder. My name is Rex Shege, and joining me tonight, I have a very special guest. He is a HBCU graduate, soon to be pursuing his JD and doing great work in the community. I am greatly honored to have him on today. And without further ado, I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Appreciate that, man. Once again, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
My name is Da'je Iannuzio. I'm 23 years old. I'm originally from South Jersey, down by like the Atlantic City area. And as of May 22, I just recently graduated from Delaware State, as you said. And, soonly following that, I probably landed a job as the administrative assistant post-disposition unit officer, for the Office of Defense Services. So basically what that is, in short terms, is an assistant to an attorney. But, we do, the main thing that we focus on is, we oversee all expungements, pardons, and sentence commutations throughout the state of Delaware and, provide assistance with them. So, my work basically consists of, making calls, taking calls with the clients, providing financial assistance, just anything they need, basically client tracking, just any type of assistance, anything they may need, anything that we can do to get them closer again to expungement. That's basically my job. So all the office work, you know what I mean? All the dirty work, as I once said before. So, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Da'je. Again, thank you so much for coming on tonight. So with your specific line of work, what kind of got you interested in law and specifically what you're doing now?
Okay, well, basically, what first got me interested in law, this goes all the way back. I'm a middle child. I have two brothers. I have one younger, who's currently in college now, and one older. And, unfortunately, my older brother, he's currently incarcerated. He's been incarcerated for the past 11 and a half years now. And, so that's one of the main things that, made me interested in the law, more so because, even though I was younger and, I didn't have the strongest understanding of things, I seen what he went through, throughout his case, throughout his trial. And, and I'm not here to, give any excuses for anybody or anything, but, everybody's entitled to good and fair and equal representation.
Absolutely.
So, and I feel as though what comes with that is knowing who you're representing, knowing where they're from, knowing more than just the crime that they committed. And
Absolutely.
Looking back, I feel as though, the representation that he had, I feel as though they just didn't know enough about him. And, that basically gave them no choice but to represent him just based off of what they knew. So that's kind of where the main interest came from for me.
Okay. And you did bring up a good point. When I was doing some research during the week, a lot of the times, like, especially people of color, men of color, were handed a lot more unfair sentencings.
Right.
And in a study that was actually conducted by the Department of Justice, the majority of people that were serving time in prison were, I think they said around 36-37% were wrongfully convicted. So can you imagine spending all that time in jail and, like you said, either being misrepresented or someone just profiling you and saying, okay, you know what? I see that you're in this courtroom. You've already had like so many other prior offenses. And even though they were minor offenses, some states have like the 3-strike rule or, it's some things in that type of realm. I'm not an expert in law, but, I watch a couple.
Now you got it right. Now you got it right.
So so it really was interesting, getting that background information and hearing about that. Cause like obviously we see it all the time portrayed in media, but like when you're actually seeing the facts for yourself right in front of you, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is. For sure it is.
So, with now that you're getting like on hands experience, like has there been like a culture shock? Is there anything that's kind of shocked you, or are you like not so much like, oh wow, this is like new to me, or is it some new things that are like that are being presented on the day to day that?
I would say in terms of the work itself, like the people I deal with, the clients, no, that's a norm,
Okay.
because like you said, the majority of our clients are, minorities in some way, shape, or form, African American, plenty of other nationalities. So, but nothing really new. The only thing that I would say is new is, actually learning the procedures and the components, that go into doing the job.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It was learning the process basically. I have a good understanding of it now, but for the past, I've been on the job 8 months now, so it took
Okay.
me like a good 5 months straight, my first 4 to 5 months, to get the understanding of everything, what makes a person eligible for this and that compared to this and that, pardon, discretionaries, mandatories, etc. So
Hmm.
other than that, I would say that was my biggest challenge, but you know, you learn as you go. And I have a great supervisor, the attorney who I'm a assistant to, Eliza Hurst. She does some great work. And, thus far, 8 months in, I would say we've definitely expunged over at least 1,000 people's records. So that's at least, that's like a minimum. So, she does great work for sure. So I have a great supervisor, not everybody has those. So.
Absolutely. Good mentorship is the difference between, you actually learning and being impactful on the job and you like just being there just to earn a paycheck. So I
Right.
definitely understand. So
Exactly.
for the people that are tuning in that might not be as well versed in like, the realm of law, like what is an expunger?
So an expungement in this date is basically a clearing of a record,
Okay.
with charges on it. So, there's two different types specifically in the state of Delaware. It's a mandatory expungement and a discretionary.
Okay.
Eligible for mandatory expungements are, say if you had some charges on your record, that were dropped, What
Okay.
most people don't know is that even when charges are dropped, they're still on your record. They just show it's dropped. You know what I mean?
Oh,
If a
oh,
job was to run a background check on you, they can still see that. They can still see that you was charged with robbery or this or that, even though it was dropped. They can still see that. So it still
wow.
causes hindrances for people. You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
so a mandatory expungement is usually like either if somebody had a lot of drop charges or say if somebody had like one misdemeanor, or like one nonviolent felony and
Hmm.
5 years passed, from their conviction date of the most recent charge, that makes them eligible for mandatory as well.
Uh, uh,
Discretionary is it's a little bit more that goes into that. It depends on the charge. So,
okay.
um, for example, a fighting charge.
Okay.
Fighting in the state of Delaware is called offensive touching. So when you charge with an offensive touching charge, that usually kicks it to a discretionary in some ways. Not all the time, but in some ways. So now more so like a regular fight, say like domestic violence, you know,
Hmm.
domestic violence or hitting your children, things like that.
Okay.
Usually that's what kicks it into that discretionary column, or if you have multiple misdemeanors. Just recently, Delaware just passed the law for if you have multiple misdemeanors, you can go for a discretionary expungement because before multiple misdemeanors, you can only get a pardon, which is a
Uh,
whole different story. And, you can have 3 misdemeanors, something small. And they'll make people go through a pardon. So that's a discretionary. And then last but not least is obviously a pardon.
hmm.
That's more geared towards people who have, who've been formerly incarcerated, who have pretty lengthy records and come home and they want expungements, but before they can do an expungement, they have to go for the pardon first, which can take
Okay.
1 year. So a pardon basically it's a governor forgiveness, sorry. And that's basically the governor of the state forgiving you for any crime that you've committed. But that doesn't expunge it. So now when you get your pardon and the job runs a background check on you, they can still see all those charges. They just say pardon next to them. And that basically tells them that, your state has forgiven you for everything you've done. Then the next step is an
To get them
expungement.
expunged.
So those are the three things. And then on top of it, lastly, like I said, we do sentence commutations. But Not a lot of them because that's not our focus, but we do them for good cases. Like for example, Elijah just had a case, and a guy was he was he was accused of assaulting a lady. Can't forget
Mm-hmm.
the time exactly, but he was accused
Okay.
of assaulting a lady somewhere in Delaware in like the cleaners. He had every alibi there was to have. Um, there was literal proof that where he was and where the lady was at the time of the so-called incident, they were so far apart, like there was no way that could have happened. He had plenty of witnesses, admitting for him that he was where he said he was. And long story short, he still wound up getting 37 years for that. He still wound up getting 37 years for that. So Eliza took on that case, and unfortunately, he did still have to serve 20 years, but we just most recently got him off, and he's coming home now after time served for 20 years. So,
Wow. Very nice.
mm-hmm.
That's crazy. And now that you're mentioning that, I do remember a couple months ago I had the opportunity to interview a young man that was out of Virginia that almost had like a very similar case. Like he's facing a much longer sentence than what he ended up getting. But
Right.
at the time he didn't know that, and so like he was just faced with this really long sentence. And after what is it, going in for appeals?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so he kept on putting appeal after appeal in, and eventually like he ended up getting a shorter sentence, and then he didn't even end up serving like the full shortened sentence. Like he only did like a couple years, and then he was able to get out, and now he's working on getting that pardon.
Right.
So it really is crazy how I'm starting to see like both sides of the justice system. Like obviously in the media, with us being like black men, like we're seeing a lot of the negative, but like now I'm starting to see like more of the positive. Like there's really people out here that are pushing to do a lot of like you said, the dirty work, that are willing to get their hands dirty and educate themselves and really get to know the people that are being incarcerated. Because at the end of the day, although they're treated like secondary citizens or whatever, like they're still humans at the end of the day. And the best thing that you can do is extend grace and mercy and respect to people, because
Mm-hmm.
they'll notice that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure.
So with with your line of work, what's something that you try to actively do on a day-to-day basis to whether it's greeting the clients, like what are some things that you do that try to help the clients feel a little bit more welcome back into society, if you will?
Well, there's two things. I would say the first thing, like you said, is meet and greet, since I'm the one who's talking to them 95% of the time. My thing is comfortability, and
Okay.
just making them feel like they're being represented and assisted well, just as everyone else. You know what I mean? I pride myself on that. And for a lot of the minorities and African Americans that come through our office, I do pride myself on just embracing the fact that I'm an African American as well, and letting them know that
Mm-hmm.
just goes hand in hand back to what I was telling you. Somebody, like, usually you talk to a professional sometimes, and people don't know exactly what type of nationality you are. I've had people come into the petition signings, and then they see me, they put my face to my voice, and then I've seen it just put smiles on their face. They like, wow, like, okay, like you understand where I'm coming from. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Right.
That's
Right.
just the biggest thing, making them feel comfortable, and I don't allow anybody to feel like they have to explain themselves to me. Even if you got, it's not right, but even if you have murder or all these charges going down your record, I'm looking at you for you. I'm talking to you for who you are. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm
Right.
not really worried about that. You don't got to tell me all these stories about, it should have went this way. I don't really need to know about that. You know what I mean? So it's about you. I want to know more so where you from, what your upbringing was like. Because usually those two things, along with the criminal record, go hand in hand. So usually when you tell me how you grow up and stuff like that, I usually can tell, why you partake in some of the things you partake in. So, they go hand in hand.
Absolutely. That very well said. And I feel like sometimes too, especially as men, we're kind of put in this box, and we're not allowed to be emotional. We can't talk about things, and so a lot of the time we're carrying a lot of that trauma with us,
Right.
and then eventually one day you snap, or you end up getting involved with a lot of self-sabotage
Mm-hmm.
and engaging in a lot of a lot of behavior that really doesn't. You're essentially just trying to get heard or be seen
Exactly.
because of all the stuff that you've been through. And a lot of the times, like, a lot of people just want to be heard and seen.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with the type of fields that we work in, like, when you're talking to people on a day-to-day basis, like, you have to make sure first and foremost that, like, you got everything together yourself
Mm-hmm.
before you talk to somebody else, because you don't want to dump your stuff on them,
Exactly.
because they can just make it worse.
Exactly.
And you did say something earlier again that kind of stuck out to me, like, representation matters.
Yeah.
I don't know what the statistics are in law, but in the fall I'm hopefully planning to start my doctorate studies at UMES for their PT program.
Okay.
And I was doing some research the other day. 1 in 15 PTs is African American.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that, I was like, dang, that's so crazy. But, like, when you finally do meet someone that looks like you, that talks like you, that understands where you're coming from, like, it makes you feel safe. Like, you found somewhere that you click in with somebody, and that makes you feel good, and that hopefully inspires someone else to see, like, okay. I remember one time I was at the office that Da'je worked at,
Mm-hmm.
and him and I chopped it up, and I got my son, and he's seeing some of the stuff that Da'je's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that'll encourage him and inspire him to do some of the things that he's doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's funny how you say that. You get that stat about the PTs because 5% of all lawyers throughout the United States are African American. Only 5%.
That is crazy.
So that's another motivation of mine. So I don't know what the exact breakdowns are, but how can you have this percentage of white people and this percentage of African Americans, but you have 5% of African American lawyers? That makes absolutely no sense. It really doesn't. So the math just doesn't add up. So that's one of the big things I'm big on. I feel as though we need more representation from
Mm-hmm.
our people. That's not
Mm-hmm.
that's not nothing against anybody else or any other race. It's just who can represent you better than anybody where you're from. You know what I mean? I'm from the same.
Yeah.
Come from. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
understand the things you went to and can see past some of the things you've done just because of some of the things you've went through. Not excuses, just real life. So,
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So.
I think a really good word that, like, fully encompasses that is non-judgmental. Like, if you just go into a situation and try to understand where someone's coming from and not judge them,
Mm-hmm.
that also too allows you to build a stronger connection with them,
right.
and help you better understand them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So with working at the office that you're at right now, like, what's probably one of the biggest challenges that you faced?
We're a 3-man team.
Okay.
So, yeah, so, Sponge of thousands of records, but we're a 3-man team. So you have Eliza, who's the head. She's the attorney. I'm the office assistant, and our other colleague, Coley Harris, he's our community engagement specialist. So our unit as well, we do a lot of community work. We do a lot of expungement outreach. So we have a lot of expungement clinics, usually once a month. We haven't had one in the last month because, back in that, like, the end of November, the month of November going into December, we had like 4 clinics. So we still catching up from that. You know what I mean? And like I said, it's a 3-man team. So when we do these clinics and, 100 people come through, or, 200, for example, I'm the one who has to take all those files back to the office, go through every file one by one, reach out to every client one by one, verify all their basic information. I have to do all that. Coley's job is in the community. You know what I mean? So me and him do a lot of expungement outreach. He's actually a Wilmington, Delaware native. So he is just that much better. The position was kind of created to put somebody in a position, like just what I just said, who knows the community, who people know, and the community knows to see if we can get better feedback, and we have. So he does a
Okay.
great job. Me and him do a lot of office hours, man. We're from Newcastle to Kent to Sussex County. We're all throughout the state doing office hours. So, but yeah, it's just a 3-man team, and he's not really in the office a lot, so it's really just a 2-man team, off the office tip. So,
Okay.
I would say that's probably the most challenging part with just a 3-man team. So,
Okay. Okay. And one thing I love as you explain all this stuff, like I could tell that you're passionate about it. Like it's not something that you're just doing for the money or, you're trying to, you know, put put yourself on a pedestal or be in this great big office. Like you're passionate about the stuff that you're doing.
right.
And one thing that I've learned is like if you're passionate about something, that'll drive you for the rest of your life. Like your purpose is driven by your passion.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
as long as you continue to have that same drive and that same passion, like I already know that you'll continue to make a lasting impact in the world.
Yeah,
So keep it up, man.
extremely passionate for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And which this kind of like segues into my next question. What, once everything's all said and done, you get your JD and you eventually, start your own law firm and, like what's one thing that you hope to leave behind with the work that you do?
Um, caringness, honestly, if everything that I want to leave behind, I want people to always know about me as a lawyer that, Da'je, he went, he went to the furthest extent, for everybody in the same way, he cares about everybody in the same way, regardless of where they come from and what they look like, because that's just what it's all about, people come and reach out to you as, working at the public defender's office, they're reaching out for one thing and one thing only, for assistance. And in order to give somebody some type of assistance, you have to care about them in some way, shape, or form, or care about their situation. So, I would just say care,
Mhm.
everybody to feel like, they always had somebody when I was dealing with them. You know what I mean? So, and equality at the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's my whole goal. That's my whole end goal. We, equality. I could say honestly, one of my biggest inspirations is, if you ever heard of him, is Brian Stevenson. He's the founder of the Equal Rights Justice Initiative, and he represents inmates on death row, kids
Mhm.
have 12, 11 and 12-year-old kids, who are serving life and things like that. And just to be equal, because besides everything else I just told you about being impoverished and and the bad environments that you come from, it it comes down to race still at the end of the day.
Yeah.
People, people can they can see it however they want to see it and they can explain it however they want to explain it, but that's true, that's a fact. It all comes down to race at the end of the day. Certain races and nationalities are profiled different and stereotyped and treated different, and compared to others, and so we just need to become more equal,
Mm.
because that's actually what's impacting the environment. These impacted environments, they don't have the same access to resources as other environments do. They don't have the same opportunities, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's not fair at all. No child acts to come into this world, so why shouldn't each and every one have the same opportunity, at least growing up? When you get to a certain age, what you do with your life is on you. But I think
Right.
at least have that opportunity and have that access to those resources, in order to make that happen. So equality for sure, caringness, and how I deal and represent with my clients. And at the end of the day, equality, that's what I'm pushing for. So.
Absolutely. Very well said. Again, that's something that no one asked to be here. So like it's so important that everyone has an equal chance to, mature and grow and really be in an environment where they're nurtured and loved and that they know that they're being seen. So couldn't have put it better myself.
Mm,
Very well put.
that,
If you have do you have any advice for any young men of color that might be tuning in that are middle school, high school, trying to figure things out that might, have like a passion for law similarly to you?
man, I would say go for it. I would say honestly, go for it. I really didn't like, I've always had the interest in the law,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of when I started really figuring out what I wanted to do and what I was going to do, and I was going into my senior year at Delaware State. You know what I mean? When I really, really figured things out. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I would just say go for it. The sky's the limit. And in order for us to make that change that I'm talking about, there has to be more of us. We're outnumbered right now, on a major scale. So in order for us to fight, it has to be more of us in order to make that change. It has to be more of us that speak up about where we come from. There has to be more of us to speak up about, where you come from and what you go through and the things you see on a daily basis in order to get the whole entire world to understand. But if you only got 5% of African Americans advocating for that stuff, it ain't never going to be heard. So, you know what I mean? I would just, you know, go for it. Don't ever worry about what anybody has to say about you. Be your own person and, stand for and stand on, what you believe in as a man, do what you got to do. So,
Absolutely. Listen, bro. I'm loving this so far. Like this is really good, productive conversation, and I would honestly say like probably one of the biggest takeaways that I got from all this is, the more self-aware we are of ourselves and our environments, like the better equipped we are to help other people around us.
mm-hmm.
So, and I definitely do believe that like you got a good grasp on it. So
Yeah,
I just want to encourage you and let you know that like the work that you're doing definitely isn't going unseen. Continue to push, continue to strive for that kindness, that representation, that equality, because like you said, it's something that people out in the world need. And within you, this is something that, I hear all the time from my mentor, like within us is the solution. Like we just have to go out there and execute. And, if we get so focused on how we're gonna do it, who's gonna support us, this, and that, and third, like we'll get lost. But as long as you keep your why in mind and keep it close to your heart, everything else will just flow naturally. So
for sure.
continue.
Put God always.
What was that?
They put God first always.
Put God first always. That listen, hit the nail on the head.
For sure.
So
For
that's
sure.
that's pretty much it for me. I don't see any questions in the chat that anyone dropped. So
Yeah, a lot of my people here.
yeah, I see that they came out to show love, and
Yeah,
I definitely appreciate y'all coming out tonight. Be sure to follow the business page. All right, we're definitely trying to grow and expand, and hopefully get some sponsors coming up in the future. So this is the first interview with 2023. I couldn't have started off any better with Mr. Da'je here joining me on tonight. I do want to thank everyone for coming out on this lovely Friday night. Be on the lookout for the episode. It will be dropping on YouTube later this weekend at Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Spread the word, share it with your friends, families, cousins, whoever. And without further ado, that's all for tonight. Thank you for tuning in to King's Tales. Once again, my name is Rex Shege, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode.